To the summer blockbuster season, and Jurassic World: Fallen Kingdom topped the box office over the weekend, grossing a grand $150 million in the U.S. You got the heart-pounding CGI dinosaur chases, big-name celebrities, all obviously part of the winning formula. But is the movie so successful because it's part of the Jurassic Park franchise? Well, in fact, the top of the box office charts are dominated by sequels, by spin-off remakes, or part of a franchise. My guest today isn't impressed by the trend and even less impressed by the latest offering from Jurassic World. In fact, Washington Post film critic Ann Hornaday wrote in her piece that she is rooting for it to fail. Ann joins me now live from Baltimore. Ann, thank you so much for joining us here on the program. Jurassic World: Fallen Kingdom is out. It is at the top of the weekend box office. The movie is obviously winning, even though you wanted it to really fail hard. Why did you say that? Why did you say you wanted to see it fail?
I know, it's very painful to say that because critics really don't root for movies to fail. I just want to be clear about that, and I kind of engaged in a little bit of Swiftian excess there. But it is indicative of kind of an addiction that Hollywood has had to mining the nostalgia of the baby boomer generation, the Gen X generation. They just are, they've been really dependent on these remakes of old movies, old TV shows, even toys and games, in this kind of desperate attempt to cash in on this sentimental attachment to these movies that everybody watched when we were a lot younger. I mean, a lot of us remember the first awestruck moment of seeing those dinosaurs in the original Jurassic Park, and that is a little piece of lightning that you cannot rebottle, you know? I mean, you'll never be able to have that moment again. So instead, you know, they just make the dinosaurs bigger and chompier and stompier, which these are in this newest iteration. But very little is really being advanced. You know, it feels like we're in this kind of cycle. And I think audiences I think it's all about meeting audience expectations instead of really engaging their imaginations.
Yeah, and it is happening in a huge way. To underscore your point, let's bring up some data for you. Let's look at the top box office draws this past weekend. 4 out of the 5 top films are all franchise flicks. You got the latest from Jurassic World, that at the top, followed by Incredibles 2, followed by, you got Ocean's 8, Deadpool 2, rounds out the top 5. And also you have 7 of the top 10 movies for the year so far, 2018, are either sequels or part of a franchise. And there's that data up for our viewers. Is this just the new reality for blockbusters? Like, to be big, you gotta have nostalgia. You got to have a surefire hit here.
Well, you know, I do think it was interesting to me to see how well Fallen World did, or Fallen Kingdom, I should say, because it's audiences. You know, I mean, if audiences, and I do place some of the blame on us as viewers. I think we should be more demanding, and I think there's a certain comfort food aspect of this, that it's easier to go to something that you feel like you already know, and it makes you less adventurous as a viewer. I mean, we're celebrating the 50th anniversary of 2001: A Space Odyssey this year. And if you think of, you know, how that movie really sort of unleashed a new visual language and really pushed boundaries and challenged viewers, then you have to wonder, who are we today? You know, what are we demanding of our film artists? And can we do better as viewers and be a little bit, you know, kind of up our own game? Because But you know, on the Hollywood side, they're very risk averse. I mean, there's just so much money at stake that they want to have a kind of built-in audience, and so they're busily looking at their own archives and their own intellectual property. It's all become IP-oriented, speaking of intellectual property.
But like how you point out that
reuse and repurpose.
Yeah, but like also how you point out, just for us as consumers, we kind of need to sort of cast a critical gaze on ourselves as well. You know, we love the nostalgia. We can't get enough of the 80s nostalgia, the 90s nostalgia, etc. And what is the cost here? You know, what is the cultural impact of feeding our nostalgia, of this never-ending stream of spin-offs and sequels? Is it going to take a toll on great cinematic storytelling?
I do think it will. I mean, I think you put it very well, Kristie, and that's my worry too. And I think there are larger, you know, there's even larger, almost political, cultural issues in terms of like, what does that say about our own intellectual capacity? I mean, I think we have to, you know, we really do have to look at it, and you know, this kind of constant demand for comfort and for familiarity I do think has sort of, you know, you could really read a lot into that in terms of the larger social implications. But just as a movie critic, to your point, I do think it doesn't bode particularly well for innovation in the art form. Now, I will say, alongside these big blockbusters, we are seeing some really good original storytelling that's doing well this summer. Something like Paul Schrader's First Reformed, for example, has become a real bona fide art house hit. Documentaries like RBG and Won't You Be My Neighbor are doing incredibly well. So I do think that, you know, even though that the franchise model is the primary business model for Hollywood, that there is room for original storytelling, especially around award season. We're going to have a very different conversation over the winter and fall.
Absolutely.
But I do think that we should all take a hard look at it.
And I absolutely agree. I really like the point that you made, just how in this politically fraught world, we don't want to be comfortably numb right now. Ann Hornaday, The Washington Post, thank you so much for joining us in the program, and I hope to talk again soon with you. Take care.